Generation X. In general terms, those born between 1965 and 1980. Latchkey kids. Independent. Existentialism. Modern philosophy focusing on personal experience, human ability, and responsibility in an otherwise meaningless universe. We're the cause. This is the effect. We're the Gen Existentialists. Welcome into another edition of the Gen Existentialists. My name is Scott.
And I'm Bunny.
And we're here with you for about 20 minutes talking about all kinds of things that have to do with Gen X and life in general. If you've been with us before, you know what we do. We spin on Mega Wheel the Magnificent to get a topic, unless we've got anything in particular we want to talk about today.
We have not. Let's spin that big bitch.
We're going to spin the wheel, and we are spinning and spinning and spinning. The sound you hear is actually added in later because
Don't tell them how the sausage is made.
The sausage. Okay. Ooh, this is a good one. And we should announce beforehand that we've got a bit of a studio audience today. Our significant others, our wives, are joining us here in studio. and they're both looking around right now like, don't tell anyone we're here. But they are. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Just look at how poised he is.
I'm ready to rock.
The concentration. Look at him. The sweat beads forming on his brow.
And other places.
Okay. When was the last time you had a big fail moment?
All right. The last time I had a big fail moment. It's been quite a while. I hate to say.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Wow. Big fail moment.
Because we all
this
have
one kind of caught
little,
me off guard.
We all have little failings all the time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
part of life. Things don't go the way that you expect them to. But like a big fail.
I honestly can't think of one in the most recent memory. I can tell you about some past big fails, but how about you? Do you have any?
I think part of this is age. Because as you get older, you get wiser. You tend to plan better. You've got more tools in your toolkit. And I think you're able to sense big failures coming. And you're able to avoid them. Whereas when you're in your teens and your 20s, you don't have the experience to recognize when the world is coming up to smack you down. and you don't know to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Or to just stop, let the swing go past, and then continue on. So I think it wasn't really a big fail, and this is going to sound weird, but the first thing that popped into my head was my last car. I had a 2009 Nissan Cube that I was bound and damn determined I was going to get 250,000 miles out of. I was going to get there because usually when you see people online and posting about stuff, about 150,000 miles is what you get out of them. And I had run this thing ragged in my previous job and stuff like that. And for a couple days, I was driving to work, and I take windy back roads. And at certain areas, it felt like I was driving on ice. And I knew something was wrong, but it was like, I don't want anything to be wrong with the car because I only had a few thousand miles more to get to 250. And I kept driving. I'm like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And then I was coming home one afternoon and literally almost drove off the road. It was not okay.
This sounds like my standard driving in my car.
Well,
everywhere
your car's
I drive,
like
it feels
30
like I'm on
years
ice.
old and should have been retired 25 years ago. But and it wasn't my big failing, except that I ignored all the signs. And it turned out that the CVT had gone out again for the second time, which, considering that much mileage, wasn't a surprise.
Now, can you explain to the audience what CVT means?
It is a continuously variable transmission. Instead of having gears in your transmission, it's actually a belt that lengthens and shortens, and that's what gives you your quote-unquote gears when you're driving.
Okay.
That the Nissan Cube had that. My current Honda CR-V has that. Basically, when you're driving, the biggest difference is you don't feel a shift between gears as you're going, or if you ever had a stick shift like I did, and I loved my stick shift, you don't have that clunk stuff. And for a musician, a CVT is wonderful because in the back seat, you don't have the big hump in between the seats where a transmission would be.
Okay.
And you can just put your guitar and bass cases right across the floor back there. It makes everything so much easier. So I ignored it. So it was my failing. It was also mechanical failing, but you know, it was one of those things. When you ignore the signs, and that's why I'm counting it as a fail.
Okay. Well, thinking about cars and fails, I inherited my mother's car. Now, my mother, when she was alive, she was always coming up with, "Oh, honey, I wish I could just give you my car because your car sucks." You know?
It does.
Yeah, and your car is terrible, and I want to make sure you have a nice car, and blah, blah, blah. When she passed, I ended up inheriting it, and I set it in my driveway, and I didn't really drive it because it's a whale of a car, or it was a whale of a car, and it would forever lose battery power because it just sat there so long. So I was constantly either having to jump it or having to call AAA to come out and jump it for me because my jumper cables weren't cutting it. They had to use some sort of power pack booster thingamajig. So it got to the point where I just kept sitting on that car because I was just kind of keeping it because it was kind of like keeping a piece of her, you know. So I just was like, well, you know, I should keep it. Maybe I'll trade up and drive it one day. And finally, I got to the point. This is a point I get to a lot. I don't know if this is considered a failure or a.
I just want to say right now that whatever you're about to say, your wife Jean was shaking her head like, "Yep, absolutely, 100%."
I'm not in eye shot of my wife at the moment. She's kind of sitting behind me. So
it's funny for everybody that's like listening right now. Jean and Bunny are sitting across from me, and Tracy and I are sitting across from them. So, like, I can just barely see Tracy in my peripheral vision, but everything Bunny's saying, I can completely see Jean's face, and she's like, "Yep, absolutely."
Yeah. Well, I have this tendency of once I get to a point, I'm fine, and I will drag things out, and I will pamper things, and I will keep things alive way longer than they need to. And then I reach a point where I'm just, okay, terminate it. And I got to the point with that car, so I called the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I said, "Hey, can I donate this car to you because it's only got 40,000 miles."
That's all that car had on it?
That's all it had on it. It was driven to church by a little old lady kind of a thing.
Wow.
And, you know, was only about 5 years old at the time, whatever, but it kept losing. Apparently this was a problem with this car, was that it kept losing. Like, they had bad battery connectors and all sorts of stuff on this. I read up forums. It's like, I don't want to deal with this crap. I've got old Maybelline. Now, Maybelline is a 1999, I believe, Nissan Altima, and she's been through the war. This was a car that I never wanted. I ended up getting it because I traded in a car whose transmission failed, actually, and this was the only one on the lot that I could afford at the time, so she's brown, which is not my favorite color for a car.
It always looked more gold, bronze.
Gold, bronze, brown. I don't know. It's real poop colored, you know, and I'm just like, I'll go ahead and, you know. So
let me interject real quick.
Yeah.
You never wanted this car. You never liked this car, and yet you've kept this car for almost a quarter century.
This is true because Maybelline has seen me through. You know, we've been through the best of times and the worst of times. She's like my Millennium Falcon. I get to get inside and I say, "Okay, maybe, let's go, baby."
There's a certain romanticization going on here
because
there is. That car and the Millennium Falcon have nothing in common.
Oh, they do. They're constantly falling apart. So I just need a Wookiee co-pilot to keep it together. And that's the thing. So, you know, I get to go down the hills, and as I'm sliding all over the place, I'm like, "That's it, baby. Keep it together. You know, hold it together, baby." So, yeah. Anyway, I ended up donating this car and only getting like a $3,000 tax write-off on it. So that could be probably considered a big fail, a big adulting fail. But, you know, I think about it, and it was like, okay, I needed to get rid of the car because it was just kind of, there was a lot of emotional baggage attached to that car for me.
Yeah, understood.
And every time I got in, I could smell my parents, you know, and I could, you know, it was them.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I just need to let this go. So I let it go, and hopefully they made some money off of it for Make-A-Wish, and some kid got their wish. Now, you want to hear about a fail from the past?
Always.
We'll just keep on this, because it has to do with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. When I was very, very young, we got the Disney Channel when it first came out, and they had this television program on there called When You Wish Upon a Star, kind of playing off the Jiminy Cricket, Pinocchio crap. And they had this deal where it was like, it's through Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they were like, send in, if you have a wish, if you know someone that wants to have a wish come true, write to us and we'll be in contact. And I was like, well, this is great. I'm going to write a postcard. And I had no idea this was for terminally ill children or something. So I just thought this was like kind of a lottery thing. So I was like, I want to have dinner with Benny Hill. So
nice.
I wrote this big letter about how much I adored Benny Hill. This is like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And I sent it in, and my parents were like, oh, honey. That's for kids who are really sick and all that. And I was like, really? So I'm just imagining some poor schlub exec going through these postcards like, get a load of this shit, get a load of this weirdo, this 10-year-old who wants to have dinner with Benny Hill. So yeah, that wish never came true. So that was sort of a fail on my part of just like living on pure emotion and love of British vaudeville comedy.
But here's the thing: I'm just picturing if they had gotten it and went. Somebody in the room at the time goes, well, I know Benny's manager. We can make this happen.
Now, that would have been a dream come true.
And friend. Getting it all the way to the point of them contacting you or your parents, like, okay, so what are you going through?
Well, I am horribly underweight for my age. Does that count?
It would have been, what am I going through? I want to meet Benny Hill. That's what I'm going through.
I'm 10 years old and I weigh 80 pounds. Is that enough? I mean, I've got red hair and I get picked on a lot. Does that count? So, yeah.
Oh, my.
And then when poor Benny passed when we were in high school, I wore a British pin and a black ribbon around my arm for a week.
Yeah.
It was a week of mourning. Well, not even the Queen deserved such regal mourning.
Here's what I remember of, like, if Benny Hill was on, I tried to watch it.
Of course.
And, like, when I was working at TCBY in high school before I got the job at Record Alley, when I was just learning to drive, my dad would come down, pick me up, and I would drive home. And when we got home, we would either watch Benny Hill or the Morton Downey Jr. show.
Wow. A couple of classy individuals.
Either one were on Channel 19, and that's what we would do before we headed to bed.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, that was like how the days were capped off back then at like age 15, 16.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Good. It's something good to share with your pop.
Absolutely. So, should we give the wheel a spin again?
Of course.
All right. Mega Wheel of Magnificent is spinning and spinning and spinning. I wish we could, like, make the spin faster. But when you've got over 500 topics and things that you could answer, it takes some time.
Of course, we are desperate for more topics. So if you have any, go ahead and send it in to us. You can send it in to us via the Mixcloud, where you found this. You can get the Mixcloud app, actually, where you can listen to this program on the go. Or you can just drop us a line at morningpizzaradio@proton.me.
And in the subject line, reference the show that you're listening to, because we've got like a blue million shows on
We do, and there's more coming.
So, next question. What is the best gift you've ever received? And it seems like we did a topic like this very recently.
We did this.
So, you want to skip that and do a different one?
Sure.
Yeah, let's give it another spin. And this is why we want people to send in topics, because it's a lot more fun. Not like we'll take time and think about them before the show.
No.
But to have a topic and just go, okay, this is going to be great.
Yeah, this show is completely improvised, if you haven't been able to tell.
Yeah, completely extemporaneous. Okay, do you believe in love at first sight?
Absolutely.
Expand on that, please. We've got time to fill.
Explain.
Explain yourself, sir.
Yeah. I think there's a point where we had an episode previously where you talked about where you first met.
Episode.
Yeah, you first met Tracy.
Yeah.
And you said you saw her and you were like, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's love at first sight.
As if it was a piece of meat. Yeah. I like that. I'll take that. Why not?
Look at those haunches. That's good
Put
meat.
it on the plate.
Yeah,
Let's go.
So, yeah. I think there's definitely a point.
Are you feeling
like
objectified? I apologize.
I don't. I'm the yang to his sober yin. So, Yeah, I think there's just a point where that happens. And I think most people, most balanced people on this planet, they'll run into something like that where you meet someone that you may date for a while or you may live with for the rest of your life, but you meet them and a light goes on and you see that sparkle in their eyes. And you remember the Monkees TV show where Davy Jones would be somewhere and the girls and they'd have sparkles in their eyes and stuff? That's sort of what it's like. That's the literal version of it. But yeah, that's what I feel. I mean, I felt that way when Jean came into the coffee shop. I was like, I knew it was her.
Yeah.
But I'd never actually met her or seen a picture of her before. So, and I've had that happen before in the past too, you know.
I've had it with material things too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you look across my left shoulder at the white bass that's in the rack there, I walked into Third Rock Music in Cincinnati and I saw that bass. I was actually looking for something else. I was looking for a DI pedal, direct input pedal, and found one I wanted to try out. And that bass was just like, I'm going to use this to check it out.
Okay.
Wasn't shopping for a bass. And it had been there on the rack for over a year actually at the time. Just nobody bought it. And it just, as much as I was checking out the pedal, I was playing the bass, and I loved the bass, everything about it, the look, everything about it.
Now, how much of that is love and how much of that is lust? Because there's a defining line between the two, and I think a lot of younger people especially get those two confused.
The thing I've found with musical instruments, and any musicians listening right now would be familiar with GAS, an acronym that amongst the musical community stands for Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And that often starts with lust. You see a new bass, a new guitar, a new pedal. You're like, oh, shit, I got to have that. Mm-hmm. And normally, it'll fade a little bit. Especially now, you'll watch videos. You'll see people trying them out, playing them. You're like, I liked it at first sight, but it's not really my thing. And you can kind of quell it and get rid of it. But with this bass, I like that. It was the same kind of thing. When I played it, solidified it, so much so that I went back twice more over the next couple months, and every time I went in I played it. Nobody had bought it yet, and finally I talked to Tracy. I'm like, I really want that bass. I had some money saved up. I'm like, I'm gonna go back again. If it's still there, I'm buying it. Okay. And it was. I went in, I didn't even play it again. I just took it off the hanger and took it up to the counter. It was like, hey Tony, I want this.
Nice.
That was it.
Okay.
And it became, while I was with Dr. Kevin Holmutz in the adjuncts, most of the time I played live, that was the bass I was playing through most of that band.
It was destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. And still right now, if I were called to a session or do any recording, like I did, I went down to Lexington a couple weeks ago and played on Kevin's new album, did a track for him, and that's the bass I took. So it was just the right kind of thing. Everybody's turning and like looking at the bass.
I'll tell you, the 24-hour rule is usually really good when it comes to lustful things,
especially
needful things.
Yeah.
I'll always look at something, and if it gets me up, so to speak, I'll give it 24 hours.
Mean?
What do I mean? Ask an adult. I'll take 24 hours and I'll sleep on it. And if I still have those desirous thoughts about that object or person or whatever, then I will act on it. But
yeah. One of the best things, I think, and it's actually Tracy that coached me on this, like put it in your cart and forget about it. And then look again tomorrow.
Yeah, online cart.
Yeah. Yeah, just
fill up items at the Kmart, walk around for an hour, and then just leave them
exactly.
somewhere. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, just leave the cart in the aisle, take the one thing that you actually wanted. But, I mean, sometimes it's something I'll put in the cart, like, I'd really like to have that, and then literally forget about it and come back a week later because I've got something I need and go, oh, why is that? Yeah, I don't really need that. Delete.
Yeah, Amazon lists are great for that.
Yeah.
Because there is stuff sitting in my list that have been there for like 8-10 years now that I'm never going to buy that. You know?
The wish list
sitting there.
Actually, I should go in and clear my wish list out because there's some stuff in there like that I don't necessarily not want it, but it's kind of in that category of, well, I'm not going to spend my money on it. But if somebody wants to buy me something,
well, there's your advice for this episode, kids. If you're out there listening, go ahead and call your parents, tell them you love them, and clean out your damn wish list, especially because it's getting around the holidays. So
yeah, clean it out. Put new stuff in there. Go look for stuff and find your own gas, and throw the stuff in your wish list.
If it gets you up, put it in there for 24 hours.
Absolutely, and then buy it. Well, that should just about do it for this episode. We appreciate everybody tuning in. This has been the Gen Existentialist. My name's Scott.
I'm Bunny.
And we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.